After a lifetime of working hard and saving diligently, you've hit 62 with $800,000 in the bank. Now the big question looms. Can you finally retire, and will it be the life you've imagined? In this video, we'll break down what that money can actually do for you, walk through a real financial plan, and help you decide what kind of retirement is truly within reach. Hi, I'm Josh Palmer, Director of Financial Planning with the Noble Group. I'm a certified financial planner and have more than 2 decades of experience in the financial industry. There's a ton to unpack here, and it really is a loaded question. Sure, you can retire, but the more important part of that question is, will it be the retirement you've always imagined? That's what we're going to figure out today. So let's start by really thinking about what that decision entails financially. And then we'll look at an example of a couple that was in the same situation as you and how we've navigated them through that process. First, retirement is supposed to be a wonderful time. But since it may last 20 to 30 years or even longer depending on when you begin, we need to make sure we're planning ahead for the financial ups, downs, and unknowns that you may experience during this time. The second thing to consider is the value of your dollar. In my many years of financial planning, inflation is one of the most seldom thought of factors, but one that could have the greatest impact. Let's look at this chart. Over the course of a 20 to 30 year retirement, even a very modest inflation rate of 3% can erode 45 to 55% of your purchasing power, meaning that over the course of your retirement, you may only be able to purchase half of the stuff you were at the beginning of retirement. Half the groceries, half the gas, and this is just basic goods and services. Healthcare historically inflates at a much higher rate. Since 1945, healthcare inflation is closer to 5%, which means the dollar you spend at the beginning of retirement on healthcare would only buy 25 to 30 cents worth by the time you're in your late 80s. And when will you probably need your healthcare dollars to be the most productive? The tail end of your retirement. So it's extremely important that when we make decisions on what we want to spend, we're also accounting for the inflation cost that will eat away at our savings. Lucky for us, when we crunch these numbers for clients in our financial planning software, inflation impacts are already built into the equation. So we can simply look at what we want to spend in today's dollars, and the software will do all the rest. So let's look at an example of a recent couple we had come into the office. Frank and Joanna are both 62 and earning a combined household income of $200,000. They are looking to retire later this year and are asking us if that's possible, and if so, what it might look like. Anytime someone comes into our office for a financial plan, we're going to start with their goals. In other words, what do they need financially for retirement? Then we'll look at their assets, and we see how those assets are allocated in different types of accounts. For Frank and Joanna, their goal is to retire on $10,000 per month. In terms of assets, they have about $800,000 in investments. Frank has $590,000 in his 401k. They have a joint investment account of $210,000, and they have an emergency fund with $25,000 in cash. Their current asset allocation is about 63% equities and about 37% fixed income and cash. Once we know their spending goal, their assets, and how their assets are allocated, we can run some hypothetical trials to predict their chances of retirement success. 1,000 times we'll take their $800,000 in assets and spend $120,000 per year to see whether this can take them through retirement. Based on the number of trials that are successful, we can determine their chances of not running out of money through the rest of their lives. When we run the numbers, what we find is no, this current scenario won't work. Looking at the median trial of our results, we can see that their retirement nest egg would be depleted by age 70. A far cry from the average life expectancy of 90. So what can Frank and Joanna do? When we come to a retirement scenario that may not work, not all hope is lost. We may just need to make some adjustments. In this case, Frank and Joanna can either decide still to retire now but spend less, or they can retire later to still spend the same. We also want to see what happens if we adjust their asset allocation and risk tolerance to try and make their portfolio more efficient. Let's first see what happens if they still retire now but spend less. We can calculate that they need to reduce their monthly spending from $10,000 to about $6,250 per month or $75,000 per year. Additionally, we're also going to dial back the proportion of stocks in their portfolio from 63% to 37%. With these adjustments to their spending and asset allocation, we've taken their probability of success all the way up to 82%. And this is right where we want to be. For Frank and Joanna, their confidence zone is between 82 and 92%. Anything below that, and we start to worry they won't be able to succeed with their retirement plan. Anything above that, and it's likely Frank and Joanna won't end up spending all their retirement savings and won't get to live the retirement they deserve to live. So it's possible to be overconfident in this case. Now I want to go back to the asset allocation change. When we dial back stock exposure in client portfolios, many times we are asked why. Common sense tells us that if we keep the stocks, we should make more in the long run and should help our retirement plan. That may be true, but it also increases the chances of loss and therefore causing irreparable damage to your retirement plan. If I run the same retire now plan but keep the portfolio with the higher stock exposure, we see the probability actually goes down. As you can see, retirement planning is a multifaceted exercise. There are many things working together to make your retirement a success. But when I presented this option to Frank and Joanna, again, keeping their retirement start date the same, but pulling back their spending, I could tell in their faces that this was not what they wanted to do. So I mentioned we could instead look at the retire later option. If spending $10,000 per month was a must-have, then how long would they need to delay retirement to comfortably spend at that level? What happens if we delay to age 68? Well, by pushing back our start date 6 years, we can make it to our confidence zone at 84%. There's several reasons why this works out in their favor. First, there's more time for Frank to save to his 401k and receive the company match. But second will be their increased Social Security benefit. Taking Social Security at 62 has a lifetime reduction in benefits of about 30%. And if Frank and Joanna aren't getting the extra income from Social Security, it has to come from their portfolio. This is too much for their portfolio to support, as we saw in that original trial run. But here, by taking Social Security at 68, Frank and Joanna are getting not only their full benefit amount, which they are entitled to once they turn 67, but they're also getting an 8% delayed credit by taking it 1 year later at 68. There's another reason this scenario can work out in their favor. We also adjusted their portfolio. In this case, since we were delaying retirement for another 6 years, we can take a little more risk now. In this case, making the portfolio more growth-oriented. So we can adjust their stock exposure from 63% to about 80%. But Frank and Joanna were a bit confused. If the more conservative portfolio was better for them if they retired now, why do we want to switch to a more growth mindset here? Well, I showed them the same scenario of retiring at 68 on $10,000 per month with their more conservative portfolio. As you can see, it's not as good of an outcome. We're not even hitting our confidence zone if we maintain a conservative approach to their assets. Adding more growth to their portfolio while they're still working and saving and not using it for expenses will be more beneficial to their long-term outlook. So I threw a lot of information at Frank and Joanna, but ultimately it really came down to two choices. One, do they want to retire now, live on $62.50 per month while rebalancing to a more conservative portfolio? Or two, do they want to work until 68 to live on $10,000 per month while rebalancing to a slightly more aggressive portfolio? That's it. The decision is theirs. After this exercise, as you might have guessed already, they decided to continue working until 68. We'll set up regular meetings to review the progress of their plan and see if any adjustments are needed. Now they have direction. And for you, it can be the same thing. If you want to get a personalized look at your finances, including your own retirement picture, click the link in the description. We'll review your financial situation in a custom video recorded just for you. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.